Hey, welcome to the bench, welcome to the sloppy model, or welcome to the show, and the start of a brand new build on the 1/48 scale Freedom Models X-47B. And I'm actually kind of excited to get to this kit, but I'm also a little bit intimidated with this kit because, you know, this looks like a pretty decent sprue here from my big giant mitts and dealing with some of that stuff. But this sprue here, I'm not looking forward to it. Look at all these tiny antennas and these little tiny parts here. All of that stuff, there's probably like 30 parts there that are super tiny, and then another 25 or 30 parts over through here that are also super tiny. You know, the landing gear on this is where we start. Same thing here, more of these little tiny parts, and then the rest looks pretty good. But we start this build with the landing gear, and as I lay in bed planning this, I'm reading this instruction manual, which is really quite nice to a degree, but it's also really inadequate in a lot of areas. And I'm looking at like these little tiny parts that go onto here. Like at one section, you can see here that there is these two little tiny parts, these E39s. And if you look at an E39 part, that thing is right there. That's the E39 part, right here. Hopefully you can see that. That's the E39 parts. Mold that in, I mean, because all that's going to do is either get lost, or it's not going to be molded, or it's not going to be glued correctly, and this just goes throughout with these little tiny parts. I'm not about building a model for the parts count. I just want it to look good when it's done, and I don't think that this adds to it. I mean, you look at this little E34, E37, E33, E10. You know, all this E21, all this goes on after you've kind of built up the landing gear. Mold it, do it, or give me a metal landing gear and replace it. Same thing here. You know, we've got the disc brake or the drum brake, and then you've got this little E31, this little the photo etch, this P8s. So I get it. I understand why you do it, but it's not my favorite. Typically then Freedom Models here wants us to start with the landing gear and then go to the left wing assembly, the right wing assembly, and then we get to the air intake assembly, installation, fuselage assembly, landing gear covers, nose landing gear, main landing gear covers, and again, those get assembled with these little tiny pieces that they could just have easily been molded in like that part. That would help me with alignment. It would help me with, you know, getting this stuff put together. And then here, look at these little tiny E35s. And then this here E8 that has to go into the landing gear. Same thing with that E8. And it really tries to do a good job, but the orientation of that, it's not working for me here. These little D22s, left and rights, to go around the arresting tail hook. Same thing. The little P1s, those pitot tubes, those are fine. I can deal with that. But right here, A2, these are the main bomb bay covers, and you have to install 6 pieces on each one just to get that door to open and close. Same thing with the bombs. Not a fan of putting fins on the bombs of the D3s. So this is going to be an exercise or a lesson in patience. You know, again, that's fine for, you know, this side wing assembly parts. I am not going to assemble this stowed, and I'll tell you why. Because unlike the Taglieri kit that had a separate piece that basically set the angle for that, you need to take the piece that would either be for stowed or for extended wings, flying state, and you need to add these two little pieces, and it gives you this diagram here of that angle. And I think that angle's right here, this E17 angle. I'm never going to get that right, never going to make that work really, really well. So instead, I'm going to do these as extended. It's going to be long. It's going to be like that wide, almost the size of a 144 scale B2 in this 148 scale. And here we go. I also disagree with their order of build because paint really has to start right here. We need to paint up these two air intake installations, glue that up, paint this up on the inside, paint the exhaust on the inside and outside covers. One more time, look at this little tiny part, E38, and if I find that on the kit here, E38, it is something to the effect of right here. These two little tiny pieces right there, this E8, these two little tiny pieces there, that basically, and again they're right here, I don't even have any idea what they do, but they go into this air intake piece, like right here, they glue into that section. No idea why. I don't know if it combines or connects down to the fuselage or up to the fuselage, but that little tiny detail, again, it's not necessarily for me, and that's why I don't do these 500 piece kits, although I'm guessing this is probably like 200 pieces. So anyway, but this is where we're going to start. There's no cockpit to start with, so we're going to start with this air intake, get this painted up white, get these painted up with you know, a base with some silver highlighting or dry brushing. Not sure yet, but we'll get through that and make that happen. But that is kind of the assembly instructions, and then we get to the two color schemes. And on the color schemes, I'm going to do this 501. The CVW9 is what I'm going to do using these decals. The GBU32s really look nice. They look much nicer than the ones out of the Italieri kit. Much more details, much more on the decals going through. Painting reference guide looks really nice. It doesn't give you call outs for which one is which, but this one certainly has more call outs in that regard. And then you could do the VX9 if you wanted to, or the CVW5, which is what I did for the Italieri version of that. And it gives you the nice color call outs throughout. You know, this shows though some of the stuff that's closed, and then here's your modeling tools, and you do get this one character here, the one that's standing up, and we'll look at that, and that is a resin 3D printed kit. So that's the XB47. I will want to say on meeting the parts, you've already met the tiny ones, and these wings look really nice. That intake looks good. The landing bay covers, they're pretty devoid of detail, but maybe that's for a reason. And so that is that. Same thing here. If you do decide to not use the air brakes, you need to take a chisel and remove this piece, because that piece will not fit in. I think that's a little ridiculous to have to remove that. In order to do that, you should have molded that into the back of the air brake, but that's just me. This is nice detail here on the back exhaust, and that entrance way actually is going to sit something like this. So we'll want to paint that up with a white, and it doesn't look like, yeah, we do have some ejector pin marks here that we'll have to sand. I think you could probably sand that out and get away with it. The rest of this looks pretty decent in that regard. Again, more tiny parts. Here's the GBU32s. Here are the fan intakes. The wheels look pretty nice. No tread on them. Rester hook is good. Here's the connector for the stowed versus extended wings. And then here's a little vent on top. And same thing here, stowed versus extended wings are there. Now I want to get to another suggestion for Freedom models. These gates are absolutely gigantic on this, and for some reason, I don't know if you can see this, but that gate doesn't just go across. You're going to have to take it and smooth it down that way and smooth it that way, in order to get this nice long piece of it. I don't have any idea why they would do that, but that is going to be a giant pain in the backside, pain in the tuchus to do that. I mean, if you look at that gate, these two gates here especially are ridiculous. Same thing here. This is even worse. This is a curved surface back here, and you've got to pull that gate out and then make that smooth and make that come together. So that is a miss on my in my thoughts. Same thing with these gates here. These are, again, just gigantic gates, and to get those two surfaces to mate up, you're going to have a significant amount of work. I didn't look at the gates. Yeah, the gates here on this, you've got to shape in with sandpaper and your knife and trimming that edge on this side to make that look long, flat, and straight. And I just don't relish it. So what I think I'm going to do is cut it that way first, and then use a nipper and cut it that way with the remainder, and then sand it up to get there. Because remember, we've got to paint up to this ridge line here. We've got to paint to that ridge line the red that goes around that, and then the same thing here. We've got to paint around that dark green ridge line where they made up, and so that's some work. Now, where I will give them credit over the Italeri is that there does seem to be much nicer rivet detail, and the radar absorbing diffusers, if you will, with all these edges. And it looks like this detail here is going to be far superior to what it was on the Italeri. Now, in its Italeri's defense, that's a 172 kit versus the 148 kit. Same thing here on the top. This really looks nice. It's got nice detail, smooth where it needs to be smooth, and there's just a bit of a texture, but I think a primer to go across that is going to make a huge difference. So we're going to get started, and like I said, where we're going to start is going to be these intakes right here, and we'll get those built into shape and put together. So that's kind of my initial impressions on the parts, initial impressions on kind of the build order. So you know, we can build up the landing gear at any time, but it's going to get this interior first, get it placed, and then all the rest of the stuff is really just putting on after you can do paint. So I do like that you can do much more of this with paint, weathering, flat coats, and then install things like the landing gear and the main gear covers, nose gear covers, and some of that at a later time. Same thing with all these antennas and all of that. And again, we're looking here at D22s, which are the backs here. They've got them just so precise. I get it, but you know, you could have molded that in or made that easier to work with. And I would say that, you know, the restor hook posed up, posed down, you know, it gives you some idea of what we're dealing with. This is, again, this diagram here doesn't really tell me much. It maybe shows where the landing gear goes inside the landing gear bays a little bit, but that could have been better explained. So I get that this is the very first kit that Freedom Models has ever done. I think this is model item number 18001. I think that's the first one that they've ever produced, and they've got to work through it. So just some helpful suggestions. I'm not complaining in any way. I am saying that there are things that could be improved. All right, we're going to get at this, and when we come back, we will have some of the construction started. I have already washed all the parts. I will put those through the dish pan with some nice warm soapy water and my electric toothbrush scrubber, and I got all this handled. Okay, hey, welcome back to the X-47B by Freedom Models, and just a couple of quick updates of what we've had in progress so far. So these two pieces here are in the paint booth. They've been painted white for this section here where it's going to be the intakes, top and bottom, and then burnt metal I used rather than they want burnt iron or something, so we're pretty close. And then titanium was used for this piece here, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. and then polished aluminum. All those are AK Extreme metals, and man, they spray nice, they look nice, and they're just wonderful when they go on. But I want to talk a little bit about back to sprue gates, and I can't believe I'm bitching about it, but I am. I'm going to bitch a little more. So when these came off of the sprue, and you know, I don't know where, oh yeah, here we go. When these came off of the sprue, they were located like so. And you clip those off. However, when they did come off of the sprue, there was a challenge, and I missed it. So be careful when you're doing this. So I don't know if I can draw this or not. Here's your intake or your compressor, and that sprue gate had a square and then up, square and then up to the sprue itself, right? So I go in with my lovely little steady hands and clip that here, here, there, and there, thinking that that was the way to go. However, a problem is that these are actually keys that fit into this part here. They're actually keyed when they go in, and I didn't catch that. I didn't see it in time, and as a result, I clipped all those keys off, and now I'm just going to have to put them in by hand or put them in manually at that point. That could have easily been avoided had they simply turned this 45 degrees or added keys here in the mold, and then you could clip that off without feeling like you've done something that's dramatically a problem at that point. So again, just another little challenge of learning how Freedom Models does things. I'm really going to have to watch that carefully as we go to clip off little tiny parts and pieces as we're moving ahead. A minor issue, and it was my issue to not catch it, but come on, there are easier ways to do that. So anyway, we've painted up, these look really nice. We painted that up. This, I believe, goes something like so. I think that fits in something like that. And you get those compressor blades, and that's the exhaust, again in titanium and polished aluminum. And then this is the intake, which is going to look really nice in it. All right, so we're going to get those glued in, and then get that piece, the whole intake, glued up together. And first, I'm going to tape it. All right, hey, welcome back to the XB47. Still making progress here. We have put together, we're ready to put together our internal intakes for the engines. And essentially what I've already done, again, I've got this painted that aluminum, polished aluminum there on both of those intakes. You're only going to see the front one. And on the back, you've got the titanium with the polished aluminum on the back of it, backing it. And then we've got our white paint underneath here. And we've painted this with our burnt metal, and that I think you can tape off from the outside, but this you can't. It's almost impossible to tape off from the outside unless you stiff foam in there. Also, I've taken our color, our navy blue gray, and I have painted the inside of that lip, so you're going to see it because it sits kind of like that. And if you look up in there, you're going to see that. So that lip has been painted. The rest of that intake is all white and ready to go. I did use, sometimes old standbys are the best. So this Loctite, nope, not the right one. This Loctite super glue, the Ultra Gel Control, is really perfect for gluing on top of paint. It's a mechanical bond, not a chemical bond where it's melting the plastic or melting the paint. it's just sticking to it in that regard. Then I took my scraper, and these are amazing Tamiya scrapers, super sharp, and went around that whole edge, all the way around that whole edge right there, to make sure I've got a great contact to contact side. And then I'm going to use this plastic glue from, I think this is Naval, Germany, contact. I'm not super worried about the fit, although it's not great, but because of where it sits in here, you're never going to see these seams in here, but I am going to use my clamps and clamp this down once I've got that in place. If you clamp it, I think you're going to be okay. There's not that much, there's enough space in here to finish this up. So right now we're just going to go ahead and do a couple of things. So one, I'm going to use two different glues here right out of the gate. And the first one I'm going to use, let me get organized here just a second. Sloppy modeler is in full sloppy mode. Sorry. I need some space to do this. Okay. So what I am going to do is put glue over the top of this, and over the top of this titanium piece, and that should contact on the inside as we're ready to go. So right now, and again, you don't want to glob this on terribly, just enough to get it kind of a hold. Same thing here, just enough to hold, and that's got a bit of working time, drying time with that as a gel. And then we're going to go ahead and use our contaction. This stuff is really nice. I'll also say this about this Freedom Models plastic. It is very soft, and which leads me to believe that it'll be responsive to the chemical reaction here. Now, I'm also going to say, I don't know, this is the first gluing I've done with this contacto, whatever they pronounce it. I'm just going to say contact cement. This is the first contact cement that I've used on this, and I don't know if it'll hold or not. I'm hoping it will. It seems like usually it's pretty good. And what I've been finding is that by lining up the front here, the back works its way back really nice, and then we're going to clamp. I will say this, if you were a perfectionist, this is not for you, because this seam would be unacceptable. You can see how tight I have to get that down. Now it is getting nice and tight in the front. I'm going to put a clamp there though on the front side. Okay, nice. And then one here on the very back. Now I didn't tape off the back because you can essentially tape that off from the outside, but that is in essence that glue up done. So hopefully that will bond, and then we should be able to put that inside of the, hopefully that should bond so we can put that inside of the fuselage, that's the next step, is to pull the fuselage out. And I mentioned in my introduction that these gates are problematic at best. I don't think that's the right one for that. I'm going to go with my Citadels. my army painter clippers are bigger. I don't want to ruin that. Yeah, these gates are just gigantic. I don't know if I can get them from the side, maybe. A little easier. Yeah, that's probably the way to go. Same thing here. Careful. I've got one clear back in the corner here. Okay, and again, same thing here. These gates are huge on this piece. Not bad. We'll leave that to these. And that's it for sprue A. So now I've got quite a bit of work to do on those gates, and we'll see if we can't pull something together. But like I said, not super happy with how this one. No, I'm not gonna use those. It's too delicate for this. Yeah, these Army Painter nips were the right call for this. They're doing a nice job. And as I mentioned, this is on that. That's a. Fortunately, this is where the ailerons are going to fit in. So perhaps we're okay there. Okay, not bad. Could be worse. So just getting that ready to go. That'll take about half an hour to dry, and then we'll come back to it. All right, hey, continuing on with the X-47B, I am now ready to close up the fuselage. I have gone ahead and glued in this interior intake and exhaust. I'm pretty pleased with it. Really be careful and scrape those seams and edges right there if you've got any paint on that. Again, I'm going to externally tape off the back when it comes to that. One misstep is that turns out what that little tiny piece of 38 is actually part of the arresting hook tie down situation. So just be careful with that and do what you can do on that piece. These are going to be a challenge to get these wings put together on the leading edge. Everything else looks great, but the leading edge got, I don't know if it's got some warpage, but you got to put quite a bit of pressure. So my intent is I'm going to use again the cement here. I'm going to use the cement there for the pins, and actually I took these pins out. I actually took them off on here because they were really causing more interference than they were alignment, and I think I can do this. And then for some reason there's a little tiny alignment pin all the way up in that front, and I guess that's keep it together, but that's okay too. So essentially we're going to go ahead and put this together, but I'm going to work my way around with my Mr. Cement Deluxe adhesive for styrene surfaces after I put this on here on another shot. So basically what I'm going to work with here is again, this is going to go into the locator pins for the most part. That doesn't matter. There's one there and one here, and I am going to reinforce this edge here and this back. I think think that's okay. I'll got a little flash on that, perhaps. I'll have to look at that. And I want to do this. And we should be good to go. Alright, so that's that. Now I'm going to use, this is very similar to me, extra thin, only it's got a little more kick to it. Make sure my fronts here are good, good. Along this section here. Should have got my latex gloves out. Okay. That's lining up, so let's go ahead and do there. Yeah, where the elevators are going to flap into, that looks really nice. Got a good seam there. I might have to clean that up in the back. Get a couple of clamps, I think, to hold some of that in place. Right over the... That's a good use for that. Let's get one on this side. Good there. Let's get a couple more. Here. Okay. Back here. I think so. Yeah, nice. All right, so now all that's left is to work my way here. And I think I can do that with extra thin if I've got some. Oh, there it is. And I'm going to switch to that. This is Mr. Cement. This is the Mr. Cement for plastic models. I'm not sure if this is extra thin. Let me see if I can. How's that for a bargain? Marked as $5.99 and it's down to $3.99. let's go ahead and use this. I think this is what I want to do here. And I think what I want to try is to clamp that down. We're gonna do this the hard way. I'm gonna just run. Oh, I don't like that. Afraid of that one. Let's try this one here. Yeah, I can't get enough pressure on it. So, instead, I'm going to clamp it. And, up here. You can see we got a real ugly going here, so let's see if we can't get that one closed up. Use Mr. Hand Clamp here. Wow. Okay, so I think I got it closed up, but that was not fun. And this side's not going to be any easier. So I'm going to do that off camera. And but I do really like these Mr. Cement adhesives. They seem to work faster than the extra thin, in my opinion. Seems like this plastic is taking the adhesive pretty quickly, pretty nicely. So that's good. But I've got one more seam along here I've got to get filled in and closed up, and I'll do that off camera. The rest of this, I think, yeah, the rest of this with that Mr. Cement is looking just dynamite. I think we'll leave that one on for a bit. Let's see what happened there. That's not opening up. Okay. All right, we'll let this clamp up for a bit, and then when we come back, we will clean a little bit of this up. But I'm fairly okay with most of this. Let's try one more clamp over here. No, it's just closing up, so it's just locking up into this one here. Different grips. No. Okay. All right, I'm going to give it one more shot. Sorry for the boredom. But let's see if this one can hold it down. All right. Back with the Freedom Models X-47B. And essentially we've got the shell here completed. And I went with the extended wings, not with the stowed wings, which are folded up. This is a sizable model. I mean, it's you know, essentially about almost 16 inches long or wide, and it's close to 9.5 inches long. So it's not small for a 1/48 scale. I did manage to really do a nice job on this seam here. I think we'll find out a little more on that when we get putty on it. Same thing with this one. The rest of it went together pretty decent in the backs and so forth. And then it came time for the wings to get installed. They use this part number 12 and part number 13 as a spar between the wing and the main body of the fuselage, and I sanded and struggled, and finally I just clipped it off to where you can see this part here. I clipped off that section and then shaved this down. Same thing here, clipped off that and shaved this down so that that would fit, because it both is supposed to hit in a recess, but it was leaving me a pretty sizable and significant gap. And I was just not happy with the way that was turning out. So, and still, even with that, you can see that there's detail here, and it's got a step in the detail. This one is not so bad, but this one is really bad over here. So we've got to do a little bit of filling and sanding now at this stage. And because of the detail and because of that, I am going to try two different options. And this one's not too bad. There's no step there. I just have to fill in this gap around the part that covers it, which is this part number E17 and E16. That covers it, but there is a gap there that I'll want to fill in and manage with that section of it. And then this side is probably the worst. So somehow I've got some triangulation going here and a really kind of a nasty step. I've got some gaps there, and I've got a little bit of a step and a little bit of a gap there. So I am going to utilize two different methods for getting this gap filled. The first one I'm going to use is, especially in the detail, I'm going to use micro crystal clear, and I'm not sure if I can actually make this happen or not, but we'll give it a shot. And the way that this can work is grab some Q-tips. This is just straight water, and out of that hypodermic needle I'm just going to kind of dressing. You know what? I'm going to do this side. That's what I'm going to leave for this green putty here. This green putty acrylic model filler, Green Stuff World. I've never used it, but I want to give that a shot. But over here, I certainly want to try filling in. This detail gap and make that come together like that. So let's see if we can get a little more flow going here. And what I like about these hypodermic needles is you can kind of put this exactly where you want it. I'm just going to fill this in. And what I like about the microcrystal clear, it dries clear. That's really not the point. What I like about it is that you can clean it up with just water and a Q-tip, and it doesn't seem, no pun intended, doesn't seem to shrink once it's dried. And as a result of that, it gives me a pretty nice look and feel. And then I'm going to just come across this here. See, this one's actually pretty good, but I'm going to come across that. And then essentially just start with kind of a moistened Q-tip. I'm not gonna just go super deep with this, but essentially just gonna bring this across the top. And just fill that in and let the microcrystal clear do its work. And that's good enough for me on that side. Let's look at the bottom of that. That's actually really a decent seam. Again, we've got some more detail there, so I'm going to come back here with my syringe full of microcrystal clear. And fill this in. I should fill this a little more. Now you cannot do this like you do a putty. You cannot just let it drip in and sink. You've got to form it, or else it'll be a globule. It's a technical term, and as a result, you will not like the result. And you really can't sand this back either. So once you got it, is what you're going to get. So I think I'm going to be okay with that. It's going to fill the gap, give me a little bit of step. This is the side. I am going to fill this gap here, not with putty, but again with this microcrystal clear, because this is not bad here. Same thing, I'm going to fill this. Freshly dipped Q-tip. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. So we are making progress here. I like this little syringe for microcrystal clear, and then I have a where did it go? I just typically use a, well, I must have misplaced it already. They're small enough. I typically use just a regular resistor, and it's the right size for that, so let me get that and I'll be right back. Up just a touch. And what I do is just put that right in the syringe and then clip off the resistor head. And that gives me a seal on that for later on. Okay, now comes the big challenge, which is this step and massive seam over here. The first thing I'm going to do is tape off the panel line, because I don't want to get any putty in that panel line at all. And I want to fill that step in, so coming at this like that. Okay, and then here's my green stuff putty. We'll clip that off. Try to go a little smaller. Get it? And I gotta puncture that. Oh, making a quick mess. Wow, I apologize. I am completely discombobulated at the moment. I have no idea where that white cap I just cut off is. Not there, not here, not there. Under that. There's the black one. So. Alright, hey, welcome back to the X-47B by Freedom Models. And we have made good progress. Having gone through the filling and priming and filling and priming of these seams, it really wasn't too bad. We got through it and made that work. Really actually pretty pleased with that. Those two seams at the top, where you're going to see them the most, it turned out pretty well. Just using my filler on these areas here, again, that's a natural seam line anyways. I just wanted to make sure there weren't any gaps, and we've got that managed and handled. So yeah, pretty excited with the way that has turned out. Might need a little bit more of a sand there, but I think we're in good shape. We went ahead and glued up the elevators and airlines. There are some gaps here. There are some gaps here on the edges. But where those go in, you're not going to see any of that gap at all. Maybe just a little bit on that end, but I think that looks pretty good. So we're in good shape there. I think we've got that, and probably this one here is going to go in. So that actually looks pretty nice. Pretty pleased with the way that is turning out there. So those are all primered and glued up and primered, and maybe I'll do a little more work on that. I'm not sure. We'll go from there. These are the Bombay doors, and man, they just have some nice detail on those. If you look at that detail, it just has turned out super nice. It's got rivets, the little hatches, and so forth. So those are primed and ready to go from that stage. Again, the interior of this has been filled in and taped and painted, and I actually went ahead and filled in this here seam where this comes together from the front to back. I went and filled that with just some micro crystal clear and then sprayed primer over that, and that has turned out really nice. I also went over, after the primer was done, I went after this with a little 3600, just a scuff coat with 3600. Just enough to knock down any dirt that might be on it, like there's some right there that just run a 3600 across it, and you can hear it. and once it's smooth, you're actually in good shape. So anyway, that is kind of where we're at. This, again, great detail here from Freedom Models on the bottom of this. I really am happy with that. And that, I'll wipe that down, and that's going to be ready for a coat of paint. We're going to use on the paint a base coat of a white gray, white gray blue, and then a coat of the Mission Models navy blue gray, which I think is this right here. Yeah, no, that's light gold gray. Sorry, wrong one. Yeah, so I don't have it here, but we're going to go over that with the same paint that we use to paint up the Italeri 140 or 1/72 scale. Here's the doors. Now, a couple of things. As I mentioned in the intro, these all get some of these really tiny parts get placed in here. For the door openings and closings, like these are right here, so those have to be clipped off, but I'm going to do those last because they're going to be painted white. But this has to be painted, this section right in here, right there, has to be painted red all the way around it, so it's going to be easier to tape off. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint that outside red and then tape it off, spray again with the gray, I'm using Mr. Hobby Fine Gray primer. I'll paint that red, tape it off, and then paint the remainder of this with the fine gray primer, bring it back to gray because that's easier to paint white over that, and then this will get the Mission Models pale blue gray on top of that, and all of these will get the same treatment. And then once that's done, you can glue in these mounts, and those will be painted white, so that will go fairly quickly, I hope, in that regard. So what's left to do from a construction standpoint, we do have to build the bombs, do have to build the wheels, do have to build the landing gear, which is going to be, the landing gear is right here, and I think we talked about that in the introduction. Lots of teeny tiny parts go on all this landing gear to make it all come together. All these, you know, some of these parts go in here, these tiny little parts there. This E39 goes on it, and as I mentioned, I'm not a fan of just parts for parts count's sake, and I think that's a little bit of what Freedom Models does in this regard. Now, the other thing that is just perplexing to me is I was looking for part D3, and you've got parts D1, D2, D4 was something at this point. Here's D5 and 6. D7 and 8 have already been, D9 have been released. 10 and 11 were parts for the stowed wings. 12 and 13 were for the extended wings. Here's your antennas and bombs, and then rear wheels, and then these are the drum brakes or disc brakes or whatever for the wheels. So I need part D3 for the bomb mounts, which go, the bomb mounts go into here, those 4 sections right there. And I just did not see it here on the D sprue. And so I just kept looking for it. And I come out here to the E sprue. And again, all this is tiny little parts, right? Tiny little parts, tiny little parts. There's something that's tiny. This is for the front landing gear bay, and these are for the front landing gear going around here. And then I come to it, and I turn it over, turn it around, and sure enough, there is part D3 right there. D3, and I'm thinking, okay. So I get it. This is their first kit. I understand it, and you know, you're trying to get this rushed and out to market. So you could have done 2 things. Could have made this E whatever 40, and then converted it to E40, and that would have been easy. But to put this D3 in here, it shows afterthought, no forethought. It's just a real challenge to figure out what happened to make the D3 like that. And I'll tell you what I'm going to be really watching for is when it comes time for the decals to see if we've got some real significant challenges there. Anyway, this is going to bring us to a conclusion here on the paint, or I'm sorry, the construction so far, and the primer of the main hull, main site. And we'll get this put together. I do appreciate you watching, appreciate your time, and we'll get better at this as we move along. The next steps, get some paint on this, and then start building the landing gear, the bombs, and all the stuff that goes on top of this once the paint is done. So we've got a couple of steps here in between. We'll get there, and we appreciate you coming for the ride. Until next time, this is the Sloppy Modeler. Thank you.